All right, all right. I think we are live. Well, today, guys, what is up? It's your friend Jake and his wife Sierra here doing the Torah portion, and we're starting this off as awkward as possible to make it painful, because we took our time getting around to actually catching up, and unfortunately we waited until the next portion came around. So today you get a double feature. Right after this we're going to do this week's Torah portion, but we're going to be reading through some scripture with you guys, just kind of reading out loud, and we are going to be covering Vayera. I think this one is spelled Vaeira. And of course, after this, we're going to be doing this week's Torah portion, so you can check that out. We'll be posting that video right after this. But just to start off, we're going to do a recap with the Parsha in 60 seconds. That way we can kind of get our heads wrapped around what we're about to read, and then we'll get into reading it.
Welcome to Parsha in 60 seconds. Today's portion is from Genesis 18:1, 22-24. It is called Vayera, which means, and he appeared. Abraham meets God with two angels. The Lord said Sarah would have a son. Sarah LOL'd. God told Abraham about destroying Sodom and Gomorrah. Abraham asked if God would kill the innocent. God said he would not destroy the cities if there were 10 righteous people. Meanwhile, Lot was at the gate of Sodom, and two angels arrived. While they were at Lot's house, all of the men of Sodom gathered and demanded that the men be sent out. Lot offered his two virgin daughters. This caused a riot. The angels took Lot and his family out of the city. The family was instructed not to look back, but Lot's wife disobeyed and turned into a pillar of salt. Lot's daughters wanted to have children and devised a plan to get Lot drunk and sleep with him. They succeeded and had sons. Abraham settled in Gerar and tried to pull the same stunt he pulled in Egypt. But God warned King Abimelech and he gave Sarah back. Isaac was born and was circumcised 8 days later. After he was weaned, Abraham sent Hagar and Ishmael away. Abraham made an oath with Abimelech not to mess with him. God tested Abraham, directed him to offer Isaac as a burnt offering. As Abraham raised the knife to kill Isaac, an angel stopped him. God provided a ram, so he offered it in the place of his son. Abraham passed the test and was blessed. And that is Vayera in 60 seconds.
Right on. Wow, that was a pretty graphic little cartoon there. Anyways, Parsha in 60 seconds is a great way to kind of recap on the portion. And so we're going to read what we just watched. And you guys feel free to read along with us, whatever translation you're using. And yeah, let's get into it. All right, so Vayera. And the Lord appeared to him in the plains of Mamre, and he was sitting in the tent door in the heat of the day. And he lifted up his eyes and looked, and there were 3 men standing by him. And when he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them, and he bowed towards the ground, and said, My Lord, if now I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by, I pray you, from your servant. Let a little water, I pray you, be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. And I shall get a morsel of bread, and comfort your hearts for you. After that you will pass on. For that is why you have come to your servant. And they said, So do as you have said. And Abraham hastened into the tent to Sarah, and said, Make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes. And Abraham ran to the herd, and fetched a good, tender calf, and gave it to the young man. And he hastened to dress it. And he took butter, milk, and the calf which he had dressed, and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree, and they ate. And they said to him, Where is Sarah your wife? And he said, There, in the tent. And he said, I shall certainly return to you at this time next year, and see, Sarah your wife will have a son. And Sarah listened to the tent door which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old and well up in age, and the manner of woman had ceased to be with Sarah. Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, After I have grown old will I have pleasure, my Lord being old also? And the Lord said to Abraham, Why did Sarah laugh, saying, Will I, who am old, of surety bear a child? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the time appointed I shall return to you about the time next year, and Sarah will have a son. Then Sarah denied it, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. And he said, No, but you did laugh. And the men rose up from there, and looked toward Sodom, and Abraham went with them to bring them on the way. And the Lord said, Will I hide from Abraham that thing which I am about to do? Seeing that Abraham will surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth will be blessed in him. For I know him, that he will command his children and his household after him, and they will keep the way of the Lord, and do acts of loving kindness and judgment, so the Lord may bring upon Abraham that which has spoken of him. And the Lord said, Behold, because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous, I will go down and see whether they have done everything I told them, which has come to me, and if not, I shall know. And the men turned their faces from there and went toward Sodom. But Abraham stood before the Lord, and Abraham drew near and said, Will you also destroy the righteous and the wicked? If there are 50 righteous within the city, will you also destroy and not spare the place for the 50 righteous that are there? Far be it from you to do after this manner, to slay the righteous and the wicked, and the righteous should be like the wicked. Far be that from you. Will not the judge of all the earth do right? And the Lord said, If I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I shall spare the entire place for their sake. And Abraham answered and said, Behold now, I, who am but dust and ashes, have taken upon me to speak to the Lord. If by chance there will lack 5 of the 50 righteous, will you destroy the whole city for lack of 5? And he said, If I send 45 there, I shall not destroy it. And he spoke to him yet again, and said, If by chance there will be 40 found there. And he said, I shall not do it for 40's sake. And he said to him, Oh, do not let the Lord be angry, and I shall speak. If by chance 30 will be found there. And he said, I shall not do it if I find 30 there. And he said, Behold now, I have taken upon myself to speak to the Lord, if by chance 20 will be found there. And he said, I shall not destroy it for 20's sake. Then he said, Oh, please, let not the Lord be angry. I shall speak yet about this once. If by chance 10 will be found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for 10's sake. And the Lord went his way, and as soon as he had left speaking with Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. You want to read? All right, chapter 19.
And 2 angels came down to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. And when Lot saw them, he rose up to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. And he said, Behold now, my lords, turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet, and you will rise up early and go on your way. And they said, No, but we will stay in the street all night. And he pressed upon them greatly, and they went in with him, and entered his house, and he made a feast for them, and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. But before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, surrounded the house, both old and young, all the people from every quarter. And they called to Lot and said, Where are the men who came in to you tonight? Bring them out to us so we can know them. And Lot went out to them at the door, and shut the door behind him, and said, I pray you, brothers, do not behave so wickedly. Behold now, I have 2 daughters who have not known a man. Let me, I pray you, bring them out to you, and you do to them as is good in your eyes. Only to these men do nothing, for therefore they came under the shadow of my roof. And they said, Stand back. And they said again, This one came in to sojourn, and he thinks he is a judge. Now we will deal worse with you than with them. And they pressed sore upon the man Lot, and came near to break the door. But the men put forth their hand, and pulled Lot into the house to them, and shut the door. And they struck the men that were at the door of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they wearied themselves to find the door. And the men said to Lot, Do you have here any besides yourself? Sons-in-law, your sons, your daughters, and whoever you have in the city, bring them out of this place, for we will destroy this place, because their cry has become great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it. And Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, who married his daughters, and said, Get up, get out of this place, for the Lord will destroy this city. But he seemed like one who teased to his sons-in-law. And when the morning came, then the angels hastened Lot, saying, Arise, take your wife and your 2 daughters that are here, so you will not be consumed in the iniquity of the city. And while he lingered, the men laid hold upon his hand, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hand of his 2 daughters. The Lord had pity on him, and they brought him out and set him outside the city. And it was when they had brought them out that he said, Escape for your life. Do not look behind you. Do not stay anywhere in the plain. Escape to the mountains, so you will not be consumed. And Lot said to them, Oh, not so, my lord. Behold, now your servant has found favor in your sight, and you have magnified your loving kindness, which you have shown to me in saving my life. And I cannot escape to the mountain, lest something bad overtake me and I die. Behold now, this city is near to flee to, and it is a little one. Oh, let me escape there. Is it not a little one? And my soul will live. And he said to him, See, I have accepted you concerning this thing also, that I shall not overthrow the city of which you have spoken. Quick, escape there, for I cannot do anything until you have come there. Therefore the name of the city was called Zoar. The sun had risen upon the earth when Lot entered Zoar. Then the Lord rained brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah. And he overthrew those cities, and all the plain, and all the inhabitants of the cities, and that which grew upon the ground. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. And Abraham got up early in the morning to the place where he stood before the Lord. And he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah, and toward all the land of the plain, and there it was. The smoke of the country went up like the smoke of a furnace. And it was, when God destroyed the cities of the plain, that God remembered Abraham, and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, when he overthrew the cities in which Lot dwelled. And Lot went up out of Zoar, and lived in the mountain, and his 2 daughters were with him, for he feared to stay in Zoar, and he lived in a cave, he and his 2 daughters. And the firstborn said to the younger, Our father is old, and there is not a man on the earth to come in to us according to the statute of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, so we can preserve our father's seed. And they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father. And he did not perceive when she lay down or when she arose. And it was the next day that the firstborn said to the younger, Behold, last night I lay with my father. Let us make him drink wine this night also. And you go in and lie with him, so we can preserve our father's seed. And they made their father drink wine that night also, and the younger arose and lay with him. And he was not aware when she lay down or when she rose. Both the daughters of Lot were thus with child by their father. And the firstborn bore a son, and called his name Moab. The same is the father of the Moab to this day. And the younger also bore a son, and called his name Ben-Ami. The same is the father of the children of Ammon to this day.
All right. And Abraham journeyed from there towards the land of Negev and south, and dwelled between Kadesh and Shur, and stayed in Gerar. And Abraham said of Sarah his wife, She is my sister. And Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent for her and took Sarah. But God came to Abimelech in a dream by night, and said to him, Behold, you are but a dead man for the woman whom you have taken, for she is a man's wife. But Abimelech had not come near her, and he said, Lord, will you slay also a righteous man? Did he not say to me, She is my sister? And she even herself said, He is my brother. In the integrity of my heart and innocency of my hand have I done this. But God said to him in a dream, Yes, I knows that you did this in the integrity of your heart, for I am also withheld you from sinning against me. Therefore I did not let you touch her. Now therefore restore the man's wife, for he is a prophet, and he will pray for you, and you will live. But if you do not restore her, know that you will surely die, you and all that's yours. Therefore Abimelech rose early in the morning, and called all his servants, and told all these things in their ears. And the men were very much afraid. Then Abimelech called Abraham, and said to him, What have you done to us? And by what have I offended you, that you have brought a great sin on me and on my kingdom? You have done deeds to me that ought not be done. And Abimelech said to Abraham, What did you see that you have done this thing? And Abraham said, Because I thought, surely reverence for God is not in this place, and they will slay me for my wife's sake. And yet, indeed, she is my sister. She is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife. And it was then God caused me to wander from my father's house, that I said to her, This is your kindness, which you will show me. At every place where we come, say of me, He is my brother. And Abimelech took sheep, oxen, men servants, and women servants, and gave them to Abraham, and restored Sarah his wife to him. And Abraham said, Behold, my land is before you. Stay wherever it pleases you. And to Sarah he said, Behold, I have given you your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. Here it is, eye covering for you, for all that are with you, and you are vindicated before all. So Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech his wife and his maidservant, and they bore children. For the Lord had also closed up all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. And the Lord visited Sarah, and he said, and the Lord did for Sarah that which had spoken. For Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the set time of which God had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of this son that was born to him, who Sarah bore him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. And Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. And Sarah said, God has made me laugh, so that all who hear will laugh with me. And she said, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah should have given children to nurse? For I have borne him a son in his old age. And the child grew and was weaned. And Abraham made a great feast that day that Isaac was weaned. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, scornful. So she said to Abraham, cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman will not be heir with my son Isaac. And the thing was very grievous in Abraham's sight, because of his son. And God said to Abraham, do not distress in your sight because of the lad and because of your bondwoman. And all that Sarah has said to you, listen to her voice, because your seed will be called Isaac. Be an Isaac. And of the son of the bondwoman I shall also make a nation, because he is your seed. And Abraham rose up early in the morning, and took bread and a skin bottle of water, and gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulders and the child, and sent her away. And she left and wandered in the desert, in the wilderness of Beersheba. And the water was spent in the bottle, and she put the child under one of the shrubs. And she went and sat down opposite, a good way off, about a bow shot. For she said, let me not see the death of the child. And she was sitting opposite him, and lifted up her voice, and wept. And God heard the voice of the lad. And the angel of God called to Hagar out of heaven, and said to her, what troubles you, Hagar? Do not be in awe. God has heard the voice of the lad where he is. Arise, lift up the lad, and hold him in your hand, and I shall make a great nation of him. And God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. And she went and filled the bottle with water, and gave the lad a drink. And God was with the lad, and he grew and lived in the wilderness, and became an archer. And he lived in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him out of the land of Egypt. And it happened at that time that Abimelech and Phicol, the chief captain of his army, spoke to Abraham, saying, God is with you in all that you do. Now therefore swear to me here, by God, that you will not deal falsely with me, or my son, or with my son's son, but according to the kindness that I have done for you, you will do to me, and to the land in which you have sojourned. And Abraham said, I shall swear. And Abraham reproved Abimelech because of because of a well of water, which Abimelech's servants had violently taken away. And Abimelech said, I do not know who has done this thing, neither did you tell me, but I heard of it just today. And Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abimelech, and both of them made a covenant. Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of a flock by themselves, and Abimelech said to Abraham, what do these 7 ewe lambs mean that you have set by themselves? And he said, for you will take these 7 ewe lambs from my hand, so they may be a witness to me that I have dug this well. Therefore he called that place Beersheba, because both of them swore there. Thus they made a covenant at Beersheba. Then Abimelech and Phicol, the chief captain of his army, rose, and they returned to the land of the Philistines. And Abraham planted a grove in Beersheba, and there he called on the name of the Lord, Eternal God. And Abraham stayed in the Philistines' land many days. All right, Genesis 22.
And it happened after these things that God tested Abraham, and said to him, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. And he said, Now take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love. Get yourself into the land of Moriah. Offer him there as an offering upon one of the mountains which I shall tell you. And Abraham rose early in the morning, and saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and split the wood for the offering, and rose up, and went to the place of which God had told him. Then on the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes, and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said to his young men, You stay here with the donkey, and I and the lad will go yonder and worship, and come again to you. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering, and laid it upon Isaac his son. And he took the fire in his hand, and a knife, and they went, both of them together. And Isaac spoke to Abraham his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here I am, my son. And he said, Here are the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? And Abraham said, My son, God will see to it, providing a lamb for a burnt offering for himself. So they went, both of them together. And they came to the place which God had told him about, and Abraham built an altar there, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand, and took the knife to slay his son. Then the angel of the Lord called to him out of heaven, and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. And he said, Do not lay your hand on the lad, do not do anything to him. For now I know that you revere God, seeing you have not withheld your only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behind him there was a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram, and offered him up for a burnt offering in the place of his son. And Abraham called the name of that place, The Lord will see to it. As it is said to this day, the Lord will show himself on the mountain. And the angel of the Lord called to Abraham out of heaven the second time, and said, By myself I have sworn, says the Lord. For because you have done this thing, and have not withheld your son, your only son, that I shall greatly bless you, and I shall multiply your seed as the stars of the heaven, and as the sand on the seashore. And your seed will possess the gate of his enemies, and in your seed will all the nations of the earth be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. So Abraham returned to his young men, and they rose up and went together to Beersheba. And Abraham stayed at Beersheba. And it was after these things that it was told Abraham, saying, Behold, Milcah has also borne children to your brother Nahor. Uz his firstborn, Buz his brother, Kemuel, the father of Aram, Chesed, Hazo, Pildash, Jidlaph, and Bethuel. And Bethuel begot Rivkah. These 8 Milcah did bear to Nahor, Abram's brother, and his concubine, whose name was Reumah, bore also Teba, Gaham, Tehash, and Maacah.
All right, that is the portion that we are coming in a little bit late doing. We were traveling through Texas, and we didn't have our opportunity to get the computer all set up to do the portion. So we just wanted to do a little recap read through there, and we're going to end this video here and do this week's Torah portion. We'll show you guys another portion 60 seconds video, and also read the New Testament part of the portion and some of the prophets. So stick around. We will be doing that here in a few moments. Peace.